So, good morning, everyone. I want to talk about the Japanese anime noir, and I want to talk about that we only have like at least 11 episodes left that I have to review. I believe it's like 9 or 10 episodes. And I'm going to start with the True Noir, which is episode 10, and I'm going to work on that one today. But I also want to do this video to mention that, there's a couple of announcements. That, first of all, my main goal is to get this done by September. And that means, spend like maybe one episode a week really because it takes a very long time to do a anime review. I've explained my process where I would watch the series, I would jot down notes, and it would take me roughly between like 3 to 4 hours to write down everything, and then voice to text is going to be another 4 or 5 hours. With Chat GPT and other programs, it's a little difficult. You press one button wrong, it deletes all your notes, and it gets very it gets very frustrating. And then the other thing that I will say on top of that is then I translate that all to AI because I don't have like the best speaking voice and I want to do this anime good series. So it's almost like an audible book. And then after that, I may ask AI to say, hey, let's generate a song with some of the lyrics, well, with some of the subject matter that I'm talking about. Because one thing about the noir anime series is the music. So then I make songs and I have AI to help me. And then one bad thing that's been happening is that there's been a lot of like AI programs that I've used where it fucks up the song. I can say make a sad song, it makes like this upbeat, funny song, or what happens is that it will just like play parts of the song and then like clip out, or it will just not play the song at all, really. So that's been like really aggravating. But I would also kind of say too is that just to understand it's a daunting process. But one thing I do not want to do to you guys, and I've said this before, I do not like when somebody does a project and they don't complete it. And I also don't like projects where people draw it out really because there's this guy who has been doing like Pokemon reviews for a couple of years, and what he does is that he plays through Generation One of Pokemon, and what he does is that maybe it's every between a week and 2 months he'll upload an episode, and I don't want to do that with Noir, where it's almost like you guys are here for 5 or 6 years on this one anime series, because then it's like, why would you want to watch anything else, any like deep analysis that I do? Because it's really just such a time investment, and it's also disrespectful because it's really really disrespectful because I could be doing so many other projects really. So there are two things I need to talk about. Yeah, first of all, I want to do another series after I review Noir, and and the first one is going to be like I'm going to talk about a couple of anime suggestions. So I want to do like at least Violet Evergarden, Elfin Lied, Nuku Nuku Dash. I'm the 12 episode version. There's also Better Man I want to do, which is a really good anime. And I also think from now on, I want to stick with the animes that meant a lot to me during like my teenage years, during time of emotional connection with anime. But I also want to get to a point, and I think that this is going to be the gist of everything that I do, is that I only want to do OVAs, I only want to do movies, and I only want to do like episodes of anime that's like around 12 episodes. I would rarely want to do a 26 episode anime. You're not going to see Naruto on this channel. You're not going to see Pokemon. You're not going to see One Piece or anything else, because the problem is that if I review all the episodes, that's going to be the only thing that I talk about for the rest of my life. I'm not immortal. But I would like to do only just 12 episodes anime. I also think about doing Requiem for a Phantom. I don't want to do Mad Lax or El Cazador de la Bruja because I don't think that they're good animes, because they're like the spiritual sequels of Noir, really. I don't think that they're. To me, I just don't think I'm going to get a lot out of it, really. Because also, this is to make me a better filmmaker and storyteller by reviewing these series. So I want to look at stuff that's actually good. I think I want to do Nuku Nuku Dash and maybe Violet Evergarden at the same time. Because it would be cool to kind of do both, like alternating weeks or something like that. Because Nuku Nuku Dash is an anime that meant a lot to me. I actually feel Nuku Nuku is a reference to Jesus Christ, really. So I want to kind of explore that type of, well, you watch the anime and then maybe you had a misinterpretation when you're younger and then how you look at it differently. I like that. And there's not a lot of animes that I had that type of, emotional connection with. When I was a teenager and I was dealing with trauma, responses and anxiety and other things like that. So there will be a couple of them. But I also want to do something a little bit more concurrent, like, Violet Evergarden or Dead Man Wonderland. Or there was one last year about this guy. I forgot what it's called, but it was about this anime about this character, and he's like a witch, and he was trained by a witch really, and then his mentor got murdered, and I think it's like Requiem of the Kingdom or something like that, But it's like 12 episodes, but he goes through getting revenge on her. So I want to do like 12 episode ones because you can't, because 26 episodes is a very long time. Like this is really just an 8 or 9 month project with Noir, and I just can't be only doing those because then it's going to feel very, very daunting. So I want to get a little bit down to 12 episodes. Very rarely I'll do a 26 episode because this is a very long process. The other thing that I want to mention about Noir, and I think this is very important, is that I want to make a list of themes to talk about with Noir. Like I'll probably do like at least 12 episodes on this channel talking about some ideas about Noir. There was somebody who said that when you look at episode 6, when Kirika kills Nazareth, it's a one interpretation is that it's Kirika looking at her own funeral, and I think that's a very interesting story. I want to do an episode talking about, is Noir a statement about violence against women? Because if you look at the anime, there's a lot of times where women are being chased by men and being shot at by men. So is it a statement about the anime being, about violence against women? And then also, too, like the gun is a phallic symbol in many cultures. So it could be a statement about feminism or violence against women. There's also another one where I think religious fanaticism is another subject matter. I think self-worth is another subject matter. Forgiveness is another subject matter. I also could do a video to talk about why this is considered a neo-noir. And I could also do a video of why this is, in my opinion, is the greatest anime ever made. I used to have that belief. In my opinion, right now it isn't, but it's one of the best ever made, really. And maybe I could do a video about, like, hey, why is this a very feminist anime? And I could also do a video about, like, hey, why is Noir, an anime that should be, like, seen by, more audiences today, really. Or I could even do, like, a fantasy, if I was to do a movie of Noir, how would I do it? Who would I have direct it? Like, I would say that I would have Quentin Tarantino directed. Or maybe Sean Baker, if I'm saying his name correctly, the guy who did the Florida Project. He just won the best director last year with Anora. Because, one of the themes of Noir is the exploitation of women and exploitation of people, really. So I really think that you can make a great probably one of the best psychological dramas ever. But I think that Tarantino would do this anime perfectly. I think that, if I was to kind of do a script of Noir, or like even like you did with Kill Bill, like you make this a part 1, part 2, part 3 film, how would I, do that with Tarantino? How would Quentin Tarantino do that? And then maybe I can say to myself, what would happen if you took a director that was dead, like Alfred Hitchcock or Stanley Kubrick, and they did their own version of this? Like, who would be a director, from like, decades ago that would do a really great job with this? Maybe John Schlesinger, who did Midnight Cowboy. But I think that if I was to pick a director from the past, I would honestly stick with Stanley Kubrick, I would say, because he knows a lot about like human cruelty and everything like that, really. So what if this was directed by Stanley Kubrick? What if this was directed by Quentin Tarantino? But I think that what I would do is, like, I'm going to watch this video again and I'm going to write down my ideas. But I also want to say, too, and this is really sad, but I don't want to focus on Noir the rest of my life. And that's kind of one of the things we need to talk about this anime is it would be a very bad idea if I was only doing Noir-related videos, because the problem is that it doesn't become special anymore. It's almost like, when I was a kid, I liked Futurama, but I hated Futurama when it was on Adult Swim because they had Futurama marathons. I think, like, they also did something like where they're about to lose the licensing for Futurama, so they showed like Futurama like so many times. Or you'd watch anime on Saturday, then there would be a Futurama marathon. So ultimately, I started to hate Futurama. because I was like, there's so much Futurama really. And then I also hated Star Wars because I remember like, over 10 years ago, it was like Star Wars everywhere. It was like over redundant. There was Star Wars animated series. There was the Family Guy Star Wars episode. They would be canceling episodes on Adult Swim of television shows to show like the Star Wars Family Guy thing, and then it'll be like Star Wars everywhere. There was too much Star Wars, so I remember hating Star Wars. Like Jesus Christ, it's too much fucking Star Wars everywhere. And ultimately, Noir is not like The Shining. Noir is not like the JFK conspiracy where we can dedicate our lives to just be talking about it. To me, it's one of the best animes ever made. I would say overall, maybe in the top 100 or 200 animes, absolutely it deserved to be there. If you want to look at one of the best animes of the 2000s, absolutely it should be on the list in the top 100. If not, then you don't have a legitimate list really because of how great it is. If you want to look at the top feminist animes, I think that this should be on the list as well. But I really just would want to say all these things. That I think that I want you guys to understand that it's very close to the end. I'm actually gonna like say September is when I wrap up the series, and that's very appropriate for me. And I'm gonna say that I'm gonna review Noir today. I'm gonna work on episode 10, so maybe by Tuesday or Wednesday, I'll have it uploaded, and then Monday I have off from work. They're forcing me to take time off, so I'll probably work on episode 17 then if I have energy. And I also and I'll say that to you guys, but I also want to also confess something to you guys that I have a very hard workload because I do a lot of traveling and I need to start cutting things down. Like I have some like video projects that I did in February that in March that I haven't touched really, and it's gonna be like June in a few weeks. So I need to start like scheduling how I'm gonna do things, how I'm gonna get stuff done, and then also with my job, I will confess to you guys that I want to work at least 64-hour weeks from now on, and that's appropriate. I used to work like 80 or 70, 72, 88-hour weeks and other things, and I can't be doing that. That's not good for my health. And then also I don't want time to go by with all my anime reviews because anime is very important to me. I like anime. If I could live forever, with one condition, it would be that I would review all the animes that are out there, really. But I really, really think that it's appropriate for me to, make sure I have enough time to do that. And then I also have some good news about my work, which is that there's overtime on second shift. So that's going to prevent me from working 16-hour weekends. So what that also does for me is that it allows me to take a day off a week really, because the thing about it, and I have to kind of be honest with you, is that I live with a relative with mental health issues. So ultimately, like today, he comes home at 2 or 3 o'clock. Me and my brother both have mental health issues, but the problem is if I'm reviewing Noir, if I'm writing something up, he's going to be like in the kitchen throwing banging and clanging things because he has no sense of consideration really. So I can honestly cut down my hours and switch around my schedule to be like, okay, the days that he's at work and I'm home and I'm well rested, I can focus on this anime series, and that's important really, and I need to do that because I need to start getting my life back. So definitely, I really need to think a lot about my workload and what's appropriate really, because I just can't be doing a situation how should I kind of say this? Just putting this off for a long time. So I would say within the next 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to see 2 episodes. And then going forward, I'll probably do an episode a week. But I will do my best to do an episode a week. If not, then it's episode every 2 weeks. And I also want to say, I know I touched on this, but me and my brother both have mental health issues. And like I said, mine is more we both have poor trauma responses because we both grew up with abuse and neglect. We were adopted out of abuse and neglect. We were adopted into a situation where we were treated very well, but we were also in a situation with a lot of harshness and parents that grew up with child abuse, so they were kind of very emotionally abusive. But my parents did the best that they could. Our situation post adoption was great, but the thing about it is things do carry over. I'm definitely more introverted. I share a lot about myself because I was raised with humiliation as a punishment. And the other part of it is that when it comes to my brother, he was always like taught to follow rules or forced to make friends, or like if you don't remember the names of like 30 kids in your classroom, no TV, no Nintendo for like a week or a month or whatever. So with my brother, he's kind of turned out to be a person that's almost like, okay, if I'm reviewing Noir, again, he'll be like, taking his hammer and banging meat in the kitchen to tenderize his meat. He will be something blasting YouTube, listening to Nikado Avocado, laughing like an idiot, and whatever. And it's not that, and it's almost like living with an immature frat boy. I'm not trying to say that, what I'm trying to say is that he knows better the same way that I know better, but he chooses not to do better in those regards. So it makes like my projects and other things that I do, a little bit harder. It makes sleep harder. It makes everything else harder. But we're also talking about saying, hey, I just want to move out in the future because I got to be productive, really. And you can't just live with a person that is not going to work hard or not going to put in the effort to be considerate. And it's ultimately like one of the reasons why I don't have a close relationship with my family is because I was really raised that I need to show respect, I need to have standards, I need to be polite, but I can be disrespected by other people. And I also have a psychological complex where I have an issue of going forward in my life because I was never taught to stand up for myself, and I need to work on that thing, and I'm going to work on that. But that's what makes it harder as well when you live with family that's inconsiderate. You work at a job that's very demanding. I got a message from my boss saying that he thought that I was going to be in last night when I said no. I actually said second shift overtime, not night shift overtime. So I have a lot to balance and a lot to like deal with, but I will work hard to make sure I get this series done. I want to get done by like September. Anything can happen. Like I travel a lot. I can die in a plane crash. I can die going to work from like a car crash or whatever, really. Like anything can happen, really. And I really want to think that one of my legacies in this life is to review the anime series, do every episode meticulously, and take it from there, really. So if you have projects that you've been dreaming of doing, do them, get them done in your lifetime. Do them as soon as possible, really. Because anything, can and will happen. And I'm going to Mexico City in a couple of weeks. So I also have to say to myself, what? That's another motivation to do this on a weekly basis, to be like, hey, what? If anything happens to me in Mexico, I drink too much, I have Montezuma's revenge, and I poop out too much poop, and I die that way. Or if I get kidnapped by the cartel, or I'm sold into the Mexican mafia or whatever, I'm just trying to be funny with you guys. I want to get some episodes done in case something crazy happens to me. But overall, I know I'm just I know I'm just playing with you. I'm just joking with you guys a little bit. But the truth of the matter is, I want to get this series done. It's one of my life goals to review this and share this to future generations. And I also have ideas for future projects with this anime, and then also just other animes as well, really. And ultimately, just letting you guys be transparent on why some things are difficult for me. I got to review this anime today. And I gotta do this before 2 p.m. and then I gotta go to sleep for however many hours, and then I actually have to go to work, and then I gotta work 16 hours 2 days in a row. I gotta review this anime series, and then what happens on top of that is that I actually have to, after all that's done, I have to work 40 hours at my job in 2.5 days, and I have to come home and I actually have to work on the next episode, because then I have a very busy work week. So it's a lot of work for me, but nothing explored, nothing gained, really. So I'm gonna work on this for all you crazy dirty motherfuckers, and thanks for all your support. And I just wanted to be transparent with all you crazy dirty motherfuckers.